let's talk about some management myths. The first one, I bet you've seen. The first time I saw 100% utilization, I was a software developer, and my boss said to me, Johanna, I would like you to work on this project, Project A, for 50% of your time, and Project B for 35% of your time, and Project C for 15% of your time. And that way I know you're 100% utilized. And in my inimitable way, I said, oh, and if I happen to have a few minutes left over on any given day, you want me to work on Project D? And he said, oh, well, sure, why not? And I said, are you nuts? Now, I'm not recommending that you actually say to your boss, are you nuts? Right? Don't do that. But on the other hand, 100% utilization, that is nuts. Because when you ask people to work 100% of their time on first of all, a variety of things, but even 100% of their time on any given thing, we actually waste people's attention. There is something known as slack, and we need slack to actually move through our day and get a break to be able to breathe. Because here's an interesting phenomenon. We are not machines. We cannot really move people like chess pieces. And if we try and move people like chess pieces, we don't actually gain the domain expertise that we need in any given piece of the product. So when we have 100% utilization, we have a ton of context switching. We have the multitasking. So what happens when we have context switching? We waste a lot of people's time. That all of that time that I spent moving from Project A, which was supposed to take 50% of my time, to Project B, which was supposed to take 35% of my time, I wasted a ton of time just trying to move between Project A and Project B. And Project C, I never even got to Project C. So, because my boss had never considered how much time will it take for me to move from Project A to Project B. When we try and do this, we actually don't have time for innovation, right? When we try and utilize people like machines, like robots, we prevent innovation from happening in the organization. And all of that context switching makes everything take so much longer. So we don't want to do this, aside from the fact it's a mechanistic view of management and people. So I wanted to a little bit about where did 100% utilization arise? Let me take a little drink of water here. It arose from back when machines were expensive and people were cheap. So this is, I think you might be able to see this. Back in, and Jessica, I might be able to ask, oh, maybe I got this. So back in the 70s, right, back in the 1970s or even before that, I did do the highlighter. Computers cost many, many millions of dollars. But to rent or even to buy, right, the per hour cost was very expensive. But the salary cost, which is the purple line, was very cheap, right? Those of us who programmed, even the managers, were really, really cheap. If you contrast that to the present day, computer cost is really, really cheap now. Right, you can buy computers, really high-end computers, for not very much money, right? A couple thousand. I mean, maybe if you're buying a really high-end computer, you can spend what, $4,000 or $5,000? I guess more if you're really into gaming or kind of desktop publishing or something. But even if you have a really expensive person, that's going to cost you nearly as much as what computers used to cost. So you have to really think about, what did it really take for people, what was the people cost back then to the computer cost. So we used to think that machines were so expensive we had to utilize them all the time. And back in the 80s or something, that flipped. There was this real inflection point. And now people are really much more expensive compared to computers. So we really want to think about, how do we want to use people? And it turns out that people's brains do not context switch nearly as well as computers. We do not swap out and then swap back in perfectly. We need to think in order to be able, and we need to have slack time in order to be able to think. So 100% utilization, and I'm going to go back for just a second, is a very mechanistic view of people, and people are not machines. So there's this management myth that says, if I just utilize the people all the time, I will get more throughput. But that's totally wrong, and the wrong way to think about how do we want to utilize people. If you think about how people work best when they have small chunks of work and they make progress on those chunks of work. If you want, I can give you references for that after this webinar. So you want to say, how do I set up my work so that I can make progress on small chunks of work every single day? This is a human approach to management as opposed to a mechanistic view approach to management. Thought about this in the software field. We need to start thinking about this. I already said that one of the problems with the way we used to think about people was that we had chess pieces, right? We thought that we could move people like chess pieces instead of getting domain expertise. And back when you thought you could do that, that's another management myth. That meant that you could staff every project just a little bit so that you always had projects staffed in scarcity. And the problem with staffing projects in scarcity is you never have enough people to actually finish everything, right? You can't finish anything at all. And then you have a ton of context switching. So you have the myth of 100% utilization leading to staffing people like chess pieces. Well, I need you over here in this project for this week, and then I'm going to need you over here in that project for next week. And you never really get to understand, what are you doing? Now, this is very, very typical for testers, and it's somewhat typical for IT people, right? Because you feel as if you never really get a chance to finish anything. And then you don't really understand everything that you're doing. If you're lucky, you actually get to be an expert on something, and then you stay put on that one thing. And I'm going to talk about needing an expert for in the next management myth. But the problem is, people really need domain expertise to be effective, right? If you're a tester, one of the things I found when I was a tester, I was a developer for about 9 years, and then a tester for about 3 years. And then I moved into project management and management. And I realized that when I was a tester, if I partnered with a developer or